Everyone has felt it. The moment you realize you are working so hard to be noticed, and yet something inside you feels completely empty. You smile for others. You speak when you don't want to. You stay when every part of you wants to leave. And still, it never feels like enough. This story is about a man who discovered something that most people never figure out in their entire lives. That the moment you stop performing for the world, your real life finally begins. Stay with me, because somewhere in this story, you are going to recognize yourself. There was once a man named Elias who lived in a small town near the mountains. He was not rich, and he was not poor. He had a house, a job at the local mill, and a name that everyone in town seemed to know. People greeted him on the road. They invited him to celebrations. They asked for his opinion, then gave their own before he could finish speaking. Elias laughed at their jokes even when they weren't funny. He agreed with people he quietly disagreed with. He stayed at gatherings long after he wanted to go home, because leaving early felt like a small betrayal. He had done this his whole life, and for a long time, he believed it was just how people lived together, by smoothing over the rough edges, by fitting in, by making room for everyone else first. But one autumn, something changed. A merchant came through the town, an older man with a worn cart and a quiet way about him. He stopped at the mill to sell grain, and while Elias helped him unload the sacks, the merchant watched him carefully. Elias had just finished agreeing with the mill owner about something he privately found ridiculous. A new rule about working hours that made no sense, and he had smiled while saying it. The merchant said nothing at first. Then, as they finished the work and shared a short rest by the well, the old man looked at Elias and said something simple. He said, "You are very good at being what other people need. But I wonder, what do you actually want?" Elias laughed it off. "Oh, I'm fine," he said. "I don't have any complaints." The merchant nodded slowly. "That is what I mean," he replied, and then he left. Those words sat inside Elias like a stone in still water. He couldn't explain why they bothered him. He had a good life, didn't he? People liked him. He caused no trouble. He worked hard and was kind to everyone around him. What was wrong with that? That evening, he sat outside his house and tried to remember the last time he had done something purely because he wanted to. Not because someone asked. Not because it would make someone smile or avoid making someone uncomfortable. Just something for himself, for no reason other than that it mattered to him. He sat there for a long time, and he could not find the answer. That was the night Elias began to notice himself, really notice. He started to watch his own behavior, the way you watch a stranger across a room. At the market, he would agree with vendors about prices, even when he thought they were unfair, because arguing felt rude. At the gatherings in town, he would listen to long stories he had no interest in, nodding along, afraid that looking away might offend someone. When a neighbor asked him to help with work on his land for the third week in a row, Elias said yes before the man had even finished asking. He was everywhere for everyone, and completely nowhere for himself. Slowly, he began making small changes, not dramatic ones. Not the kind of changes people talk about in big speeches. Small, quiet changes that only he noticed at first. He stopped agreeing with things he didn't believe. Not harshly. He didn't argue or push back hard. He simply said, "I think differently about that," and let the silence sit. The first time he did it, his heart beat fast. He was sure the man he said it to would be angry or hurt, or would think less of him. Instead, the man paused, looked at him with surprise, and said, "Huh, tell me why." And they had the first real conversation Elias could remember having in years. He started leaving gatherings when he was tired, instead of staying until it felt acceptable to go. He stopped filling quiet moments with unnecessary talk. He began walking home a longer way in the evenings, just because he liked the view of the old bridge near the river, and he had never once taken that path just for himself before. At first, some people noticed. A few were confused. One woman in town said to her neighbor that Elias had become a little strange lately. Someone else said he seemed more serious. One man who had relied on Elias's constant agreement stopped spending as much time with him, and that stung for a while. But something else began to happen too. The people who stayed, the ones who were still drawn to him, started talking to him differently. They asked him real questions. They listened when he answered. A young man at the mill began coming to him for advice, not because Elias told him what he wanted to hear, but because what Elias said was actually useful. An older woman who had known him since childhood told him one afternoon, "You've changed, Elias. I can't explain it, but you seem more like yourself than you ever have." He thought about that for many days afterward. One morning, a difficult thing happened. The mill owner called a meeting and proposed an idea that Elias believed was wrong. Not just inconvenient, but genuinely unfair to the workers. In the past, Elias would have stayed quiet. He would have thought, "It's not my place. Someone else will speak. I don't want to cause trouble." This time, he spoke. He did it calmly. He didn't raise his voice or use grand words. He simply explained what he thought and why. The room was quiet for a moment. Two other workers exchanged a glance. Then one of them spoke up and agreed with him. Then another. The mill owner, to his credit, listened, and by the end of the meeting, the idea had been changed. Walking home that evening, Elias noticed something. He felt light. Not triumphant, just light. The way you feel after you put down something heavy you didn't realize you were still carrying. He thought of the merchant and his simple question, "What do you actually want?" For the first time in a long while, he had an answer. He wanted to be honest. He wanted to help people for the right reasons, not to be liked, but because he genuinely cared. He wanted to work on things that meant something to him. He wanted to say no when no was the true answer, and yes only when he meant it. He wanted to walk the long way home whenever he felt like it, and not explain why to anyone. None of these things were extraordinary. They were small. But together, they were everything. Years passed. Elias did not become famous. He did not grow wealthy or powerful. His life, from the outside, looked much the same as it always had. But inside, and in the way he moved through the world, everything was different. He took up less space in conversations and more space in life. He gave less performance and more of himself. And perhaps the strangest thing of all, people trusted him more, not less. They came to him not because he always agreed, but because he was always real. The people who had drifted away when he changed were replaced, slowly, by people who actually saw him. Not the version of him that bent and smiled and smoothed over every edge. The actual him. His house did not change. His job did not change. But something in his chest that had been tight for as long as he could remember finally, quietly, let go. Here is the thing this story is really about. Most of us spend years making ourselves smaller so other people are comfortable. We agree when we don't agree. We stay when we want to leave. We help when we're exhausted. We speak to fill silence, and we stay silent when we should speak. We become so good in managing how others see us that we forget who we actually are underneath all that managing. And the cruel thing is, it doesn't even work. People don't love the performance. They can feel the performance. What they actually respond to, what actually draws people closer, is something simpler, the feeling that the person in front of them is real. Think about someone in your life who you truly respect and trust. Chances are, they are not someone who always agrees with you. They are not someone who bends easily or who never says no. They are probably someone who tells you the truth, who shows up when they choose to show up, who lives by something internal rather than constantly adjusting to whatever the room needs. You trust them not because they are always comfortable to be around, but because you always know where you stand with them. That quality, that realness, is not something you find. It is something you uncover. And the way you uncover it is by removing the layers that were never truly yours. The agreements you made to keep the peace. The plans you followed because someone else expected them. The silence you kept when your voice was exactly what was needed. Disappearing doesn't mean hiding. It means stepping back from the version of yourself that was built for everyone else's comfort and allowing the quieter, more honest version to step forward. That version doesn't need applause. It doesn't need constant approval. It simply needs to be lived. When you begin doing that, even in the smallest ways, your life changes. Not all at once, and not noisily. It changes the way the sky changes before morning, slowly, then completely. If something in this story felt familiar to you, if you recognized Elias, or that tightness in the chest, or the question the merchant asked, then this video was for you. Leave a comment below telling me one thing you've been holding back from yourself. Not for me to judge, but because writing it down is the first step of putting it down. If this story gave you something, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you are new here and you want more stories like this one, stories that cut through the noise and say something that actually matters, then subscribe and stay with us. We are building something quiet and real, one story at a time. And we are glad you are here.